Exposed. The bone-chilling secrets of a government cover-up that will haunt you forever. One fateful night, deep in the heart of the quiet little town of Silver Creek, a bone-chilling secret lay hidden beneath the surface. It started with an unassuming man named Sam Thompson, a former government employee. Just days before his mysterious disappearance, he revealed to his closest friend, Jim, a shocking truth that would shake the very foundation of what they thought they knew. Something sinister was lurking within the shadows of the government, something that could change lives forever. And now, a shroud of darkness loomed over the citizens of Silver Creek, leaving them haunted by the truth yet to be uncovered. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting eerie shadows on the ground, Sam's eyes darted with a fear unlike any seen before. He spoke of files filled with shocking information, reports that didn't add up, and whispered conversations that sent chills down his spine. "It's not just about the money," he muttered, his voice trembling. "It's the lives they're toying with, the experiments, the people who never came back." Jim tried to brush it off as paranoia, but deep down, he felt the weight of his friend's dread. Whispers buzzed around town, the kind you feel deep in your gut. Strange lights flickered in the woods at night, and those who wandered too close reported hearing blood-curdling screams echoing in the darkness. Locals noticed a sudden uptick in missing pets, and people would stare blankly into space, lost in an unseen horror. This was no ordinary small-town mystery. This cast a long shadow that blanketed the town in suffocating fear. Despite Jim's hesitations, he couldn't ignore Sam any longer. He was determined to track down the only clue he had, a worn, tattered notebook crammed full of strange entries and cryptic codes. What were those numbers? What did they mean? With each page he turned, a shiver crept up his spine. They felt alive, pulsating with fear, revealing glimpses of a conspiracy that begged to be unearthed. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With each passing moment, the tension only thickened. What if the government really was hiding something? The thought haunted him. Visions of Sam's pale face filled his mind. What if he was right? As Jim paced his dimly lit room, shadows danced across the walls like specters whispering secrets. The air crackled with electricity. His heart raced. It was time to risk everything. He could feel the adrenaline surge through his veins. This was going to be dangerous. Suddenly, a loud crash shattered the silence, making him jump. Was that outside? Fear gripped him, and he raced to the window. Outside, under the silver glow of the moon, he spotted dark figures emerging from the trees, marching toward his door. Who were they? And what did they want? Every instinct screamed at him to run, but curiosity held him in place. The lines between safety and danger blurred. Would he uncover the truth, or would he become part of the cover-up? As his pulse raced, Jim knew he was on the brink of something big. The secrets waiting to be unearthed would reveal a truth worse than he could ever imagine. The countdown had begun. What lay behind that door could change everything for him, for Silver Creek, and for those who had vanished without a trace. Would anyone ever unveil the chilling secrets that turned an ordinary town into a living nightmare? Jim's heart pounded in his chest like a drum in a death march. The figures outside grew closer, cloaked in shadows, their forms twisting in the darkness. Every logical thought abandoned him. What if these were the very people Sam warned him about? He backed away from the window, adrenaline pumping through his veins. Suddenly, the door rattled violently, a thunderous bang that echoed in the dead silence of his house. "Jim!" A voice shouted from outside, low yet authoritative. "Open the door. We need to talk." Was that a familiar voice? It was hard to tell in the chaos of his racing heart. The urgency of the call triggered a flood of memories. It was Ben, a local officer he had known for years. But what was he doing here at this hour? Jim hesitated, wrestling with doubt. Ben was a trusted figure in town, but after what Sam had shared, who could be trusted? Shadows flickered once more outside, closing in on his decision. The door shook again, and he felt the weight of the moment. Laughter echoed from somewhere in the distance, a chilling reminder of the lightness that had faded from Silver Creek. Jim! Ben's voice was desperate now. Let us in. We have information. With a deep breath, Jim moved toward the door, suddenly feeling every moment stretch into eternity. As he reached for the doorknob, the figure advanced closer to the light filtering through the window. A glimmer caught his eye, a metallic flash, and his skin crawled at the realization. Was that a weapon? Just as Jim's fingers brushed the knob, his instincts kicked in. He flung himself back, heart racing, and his mind screamed to act fast. He watched the silhouette tighten its grip on whatever was in its hand. The laughter faded, replaced by an unsettling silence that echoed through the night. Jim! Open the door! The urgency in Ben's voice cut through the mounting fear swirling inside him. But he couldn't shake the sensation that something about this scenario didn't sit right. Why was Ben here? What could he possibly want at this hour, especially now, with all that Sam had uncovered? Just then, his phone buzzed violently from the table, sending a wave of raw panic through him. He grabbed it, eyes scanning the screen. An unknown number flickered, and he turned it over. A single message emblazoned across the screen sent a shiver down his spine. Get out now. They're coming for you. The room spun as dread coiled in his gut like a serpent ready to strike. Could he trust Ben? Should he open the door? He glanced back toward the entrance. The figures were gathering, shadows coalescing against the light. His decision escalated into a frantic pulse in his ears. Clenching his phone, he stepped back, torn. He could feel every moment stretching, an electric tension snaking through the house. With quick, furtive movements, he began to search for an escape route, heart racing. Could he find safety beyond these walls? And just as he turned to slip into the back hallway, the sound of splintering wood filled the air with a sharp, jarring crack. The door flew open, and silhouettes burst into the room, the chaos of their energy spilling out like a tide. Jim! Ben shouted through the chaos, but it was too late. In that moment, Jim knew he was trapped in a nightmare, and the darker truths lurking just beyond the veil of his town were rushing to claim him. Where could he possibly go? What awaited him in the shadows? As the figures advanced, Jim's world spiraled into uncertainty, and with that uncertainty came a grim realization. The answers lay deeper than he thought, and escaping this nightmare might cost him everything. What terrifying truths would Jim have to confront next? The chaos turned frenetic as shadows spilled into the living room, their eyes glinting like shards of glass. Jim's pulse thundered in his ears. He skirted back against the wall, feeling the coolness of the paint against his skin. The metallic scent of fear hung in the air, intensifying as Ben shoved the door fully open, panting heavily. Get back! Ben barked, shoving past two figures dressed in dark tactical gear. The urgency in his voice struck Jim like a punch to the gut. We're not safe here. The menacing silhouettes shifted, their tight lips set like stone. They scanned the room with a cold, calculating gaze, locking onto Jim. We have to move! One shouted, pointing towards Jim as if he were a prize for the taking. The truth twisted like a knife in Jim's gut. You brought them here. Ben, why did you not now? Ben replied, fear etching deep lines across his face. We don't have time. They're already looking for you. Just then, a surge of adrenaline jolted Jim back into action. He couldn't trust anyone now, not even Ben. With a quick decision, he backed away toward the kitchen, his mind racing. If they were after him, escape was his only option. He knew this house like the back of his hand. The back door was locked, but he could climb over the fence if he reached the yard in time. As he darted through the chaos, he caught a glimpse of the figures behind him, their muscles coiling like springs ready to launch. Jim! Ben shouted again, the edge in his voice slicing through the tension. You have to trust me. Trust you? Jim snapped, a fresh wave of anger swelling in his chest. You're with them. Before Ben could retort, the darkness lurched, and one of the figures lunged forward, grabbing Jim by the arm with an iron grip. He yanked free, heart racing as he dove through the kitchen door, his feet barely touching the ground. Outside, the night air rushed at him, cool and filled with uncertainty. He stumbled toward the fence, pain screaming in his legs as he kicked off the ground, the wood splintering beneath his weight. Behind him, voices yelled, a chaotic mix of urgency and command. Get him! One of them roared, the sound shattering the eerie stillness of Silver Creek. He leaped over the fence, landing hard on the other side and rolling to break his fall. He pushed himself up, the wet earth clinging to his clothes, and bolted down the narrow alley between two houses. Trees loomed above him, stretching like claws into the moonlight, but he had no time to think. He cut through the shadows like a wisp of smoke, his breath ragged and quick. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, reminding him that safety was just a false promise away. He needed to find a way to slip through their fingers. Just then, his phone vibrated furiously in his pocket. He skidded to a halt, hands trembling around the device as he pulled it out. The screen lit up, casting an eerie glow across his face. Another message, this time from Sam. They know everything. Meet me at the old mill. Now. The urgency of the message felt like a death toll echoing in his mind. Could he trust Sam like he once did? But he had little choice. The shadows behind him were closing in faster now, relentless and hungry. As Jim turned to head toward the old mill that loomed in the distance, he felt the startling weight of inevitability creep closer, past choices lurking in the dark, angry manipulators tightening their grip. What awaited him at the old mill? Answers, betrayal, or something even darker? Questions hung heavy in the air like a curtain of fog, ready to ensnare him in their shroud. Would he be a pawn in this twisted game, or could he turn the tide? The night still had so many secrets to reveal. Jim sprinted through the dark alley, adrenaline pulsing through his veins like wildfire. The old mill loomed ahead, a skeletal structure against the starless sky. Years ago, it had been a place of laughter and warm summer nights. Now it felt more like a tomb. Dread pooled in his stomach as he considered that he was racing toward uncertain conversations and possible betrayal. He could hear the thundering footsteps of his pursuers nearby, echoing off the narrow walls. They moved like wolves on the hunt, relentless and eager, and Jim's heart raced as he ducked behind a dumpster, feeling the cold, hard metal bite into his back. He pressed his lips together, willing himself to quiet the thudding of his heart, knowing he had to think fast. Come on, Jim, he whispered to himself. You've trained for situations like this, just focus. Peering around the corner, he caught a glimpse of the shadows pouring into the alley. They were searching methodically, eyes scanning every crevice, every shadow. Jim's breath hitched in his throat. He was just a few feet from being caught. His mind raced with memories of carefree days with Ben and Sam, unaware that they would become entangled in something dangerous and sinister that even now threatened to consume him. Crouching low, he darted from behind the dumpster and made his way toward the mill's entrance. The old wooden door creaked ominously as he pushed it open, stepping into the darkness. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and beams of moonlight pierced through the cracks in the aged walls. The mill was silent, almost mournful, like it was holding its breath. Sam? His voice barely broke the silence, but he was met only by the hollow sounds of his own echo. Anxiety knotted in his chest. Had he miscalculated? Had Sam betrayed him too? Just then, a rustle from the far corner jolted him. Jim tensed, muscles coiling as he turned slowly, eyes adjusting to the dark. He stepped forward, heart hammering in his chest and clenching his fists, ready to defend himself against whatever or whoever was lurking there. Jim? The voice came out shaky, laced with terror. Sam! Jim rushed to where the voice came from, relief flooding his veins as he found Sam huddled behind an old crate, eyes wide and breathing heavily. What took you so long? Sam gasped, glancing over Jim's shoulder as though expecting the shadows to spill in after him. There's no time for games, Jim hissed. What did you mean by they know everything? What's going on? Sam's face twisted in anguish. I thought we could trust Ben. He said he could protect us, but I overheard him talking to them. It's not about us. They're hunting someone else, and you're in the way. Someone else? The question hung in the air, heavy with dread. Who? Before Sam could answer, the door crashed open behind them. The blaring lights turned the darkness into a battlefield, illuminating the faces of their pursuers. Jim felt despair wash over him as they poured in, tactical weapons raised like offerings for the sacrifice. Jim, run! Sam shouted, and instinct kicked in. Jim bolted, adrenaline surging as he darted through the labyrinth of the mill. He could hear them shouting orders, hear the thud of heavy boots behind him as he pushed deeper into the shadows. Each step felt like a gamble, every corner dipped in uncertainty. He needed a plan, but all he had was fear and the distant scent of betrayal. Jim! Just then, another familiar voice cut through the chaos. It was Ben, emerging from another dark passage. Jim skidded to a halt, heart racing. Get down! Ben yelled, and Jim felt a surge of emotion. Anger mixed with confusion boiled through him. Could he trust Ben again? The answer felt slippery, but there was no time to think. As the sound of chaos erupted behind them, Jim faced a crossroads. Beyond Ben lay the promise of safety, or perhaps a new betrayal. The shadows closed in, and he realized everything he thought he knew was hanging by a thread. Would he cling to old ties or sever them and forge his own path to survival? Which way? He shouted over the echoing chaos, desperate for a choice. The answer loomed. Was he stepping toward freedom or deeper into a trap? The air crackled with uncertainty, and with it, the hidden truth threatened to coil around him like a vice. Would he emerge unscathed, or would the night carve its secrets into his soul? The old mill stood as a witness, a dark relic of what once was and what might become. Jim's instincts screamed at him as he hesitated, caught between Ben's outstretched hand and the approaching chaos. The weight of betrayal thickened the air, pressing down like a fog that obscured the path ahead. Every muscle in his body tensed, not just from fear, but from the uncertainty of the choices laid out before him. Are you with me or not? Ben's voice sliced through Jim's indecision, urgency laced in every syllable. The peril that lingered in the shadows drew closer. He could feel it like a chill running up his spine. Let us go! Jim finally shouted, sprinting toward Ben, racing against the heavy footsteps that reverberated through the mill. He felt Sam trail behind, breaths quick and shallow like a breath of wind before a storm. Ben led them down a narrow hallway, one cloaked in darkness and strung with cobwebs. The narrow scope of moonlight barely illuminated their path, casting elongated shadows that danced like phantoms on the walls. Jim felt his pulse hammering in his throat, a constant reminder that danger was nipping at their heels. There's a way out through here, Ben declared, his expression a mask of determination and fear. They plunged deeper into the mill, where the air was thick and stale, redolent of time forgotten. But then, the lights flickered overhead, the incandescent bulbs buzzing ominously. His heart sank as he glanced back. The shadows were almost upon them, hungry and relentless. Ben, what's really happening? Sam's voice trembled, cutting through the thick tension that enveloped them. You can't let them catch us. We need answers. Trust me, Sam. There's no time. Ben snapped, frustration etching deeper lines in his forehead. If they find you too, it won't just be questions they want to ask. Suddenly, a thunderous crash echoed from behind them, reverberating through the mill. The pursuing forces had breached through another entrance, and the sound sliced through Jim's hesitation like a knife. Panic surged, but Jim knew they had to move. They surged forward deeper into the bowels of the mill, into the heart of forgotten shadows where the whirring of machinery lay still. The air grew colder, unfamiliar, but somehow intoxicating with the smell of oil and rust. The three friends stepped into a vast, dark chamber, the old generator room. Here. Ben pointed at a heavy metal door that looked like it hadn't been touched in years. It leads to the tunnels below the mill. We can escape through there. Can they follow us? Sam asked, glancing over his shoulder anxiously. They want it's an underground system. But we have to be quick. Ben's voice held an edge of desperation, and without waiting for a response, he heaved the door open. The rusty hinges groaned in protest, revealing a narrow path swallowed by darkness. One by one, they squeezed through the door, Jim glancing back just once before plunging into the abyss. As soon as he stepped inside, the air shifted, felt alive, whispering secrets that had rested too long beneath the surface. With every step they took, shadows stretched toward them, filled with movements just outside the corner of their eyes. The echoes of their breaths intertwined with the distant sound of water dripping somewhere far away. Fear knotted Jim's stomach, but the thrill of danger made his heart race. Would they finally uncover the truth, or were they diving headfirst into a trap laid by the very people who called themselves friends? The tunnel twisted and turned, disorienting them. Panic gnawed at Jim as they pressed forward through the darkness, deeper into the unknown. Suddenly, a faint glow flickered ahead, drawing them closer. It pulsated with an eerie light, beckoning them toward a horrific revelation. What lay beyond was not just an escape route, but the key to unraveling a dark conspiracy that threatened their lives. "What is that?" Sam whispered, hesitating, fear clinging heavily to his voice. Jim felt a chill creep down his spine, and he knew they had uncovered something monumental. "Whatever it is, it's why they're hunting us." Ben's voice trailed off as realization dawned. The threat was more immense than they'd ever imagined. As the flickering light danced just ahead, Jim took a deep breath, and with a mix of dread and determination, led the way forward, ready to confront the truth that awaited them. In that moment, chaos receded behind them, replaced by the silence of the tunnel where secrets lay coiled, waiting for the light. What awaited them just beyond that glowing threshold? Was it salvation, or the darkest depths of betrayal? The light grew stronger, pulsing rhythmically as if it had a heartbeat. Jim felt its warmth beckon him, yet a voice inside him screamed to turn back. He glanced at Sam, whose eyes reflected a blend of curiosity and fear, and then at Ben, whose jaw was set in grim determination. "Stay close," Ben ordered, leading them toward the glow. Each step felt heavier than the last, like the shadows behind them were reaching out to drag them back. Jim's heart raced with every beat, keeping time with the echoing footsteps that seemed to follow them. As they neared the source of the light, they entered a cavernous chamber, its walls lined with strange machinery that hummed with life. Illuminated panels flickered illuminations on old equipment, casting erratic shadows that morphed into grotesque forms. The room felt alive, thrumming with energy like an ancient being revealing itself. What captured their attention was a large table in the center of the room, covered in files, maps, and a myriad of objects that looked like high-tech gadgets straight out of a movie. But the focal point was a large screen that hung ominously on the wall, displaying a series of rapid-fire images, faces, locations, and words that spun a tale of corruption and deceit. "Is this?" Sam murmured, stepping closer to peer at the screen. "Government operations," Ben whispered, disbelief and fear mingling in his tone. His eyes darted over every detail, unraveling a story that was more sinister than they had anticipated. Jim felt the room grow heavier, the implications of what they saw pressing down on him. These weren't just files, they were secrets. Dark secrets that could upend everything they knew. "What are they doing?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Ben turned, his expression suddenly grave. "Testing. Torturing. Covering up. All of it." Heart pounding, Jim took a step back, staring at the screen. The faces featured there were all too familiar, people they knew, people they trusted. How could this be? "We need to show this to everyone." His panic surged, realizing the stakes involved. Could they really expose this? "Are you insane?" Ben snapped back, urgency flooding his tone. "Do you think they want to come for us if we do? This could cost us everything." Sam shifted uneasily. "But if we don't do something, who will? This is bigger than us." The tension thickened, a deadline looming like the hungry shadows behind them. Jim felt the weight of doubt, and courage collide inside him. Was he willing to risk it all? He opened his mouth to respond when a horrendous clatter echoed from the tunnel behind them, freezing them in place. "Did you hear that?" Ben's voice dropped to a tense whisper. They all turned, eyes wide, ears straining against the darkness. The echoes grew closer, heavy footsteps grazing the ground, reverberating through the chamber. The hunters were here. We need to decide, now! Sam shouted, the desperation clawing at his voice. He looked at the screen and then at his friends. Are we going to use this information, or will we run and hide like nothing happened? Before Jim could answer, the door they had entered suddenly swung open, lights spilling into the chamber, casting stark shadows across the floor. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, obscured by darkness and the startling brightness behind them. Are you really that naive? A cold voice sliced through the room, sending chills down Jim's spine. You should have stayed gone. The figure stepped forward, a familiar face emerging from the shadows, a face he never expected to see here. Caitlin? Jim stammered, disbelief flooding him. What are you doing? She asked, her voice steady but laced with tension. You shouldn't have come here. What are you talking about? Sam's voice trembled, confusion creeping in. As Caitlin took another step into the room, Jim felt betrayal gripping him. She had her own secrets, and now they tangled with the truth they were desperate to uncover. The risk was rising every second, the now unmistakable chaos caving in around them. Would they reveal the truth, or would Caitlin's presence mean they had walked into a trap? A fresh dread rolled through Jim, and a single thought echoed in his mind: they might not all make it out alive. With the looming threat edging closer, and shadows of betrayal lingering still, what would they choose to do now? The choice could shatter everything they thought they knew. Jim's heart raced. The familiarity in Caitlin's voice mixed with the fear in Ben's eyes made the air thick with tension. She stepped further into the light, and Jim strained to decipher her expression. Was she an ally, or had she turned against them? What do you mean I shouldn't have come here? He finally blurted, desperation rising. You know what's going on, don't you? Caitlin hesitated, glancing back toward the dark tunnels behind her, as if she feared something more lurking there. You can't just walk into a place like this and expect to walk out, she said, her voice lower, almost frantic. They're watching. They always are. Ben moved instinctively closer to Jim, a protective stance that made Jim feel even more exposed. Who is they? Ben pressed, his tone hardening. You just show up like nothing's wrong, and we're supposed to trust you. For a split second, Caitlin's mask of composure faltered. I'm not the enemy, Ben. But if you're here, it means you've found something you shouldn't have. Sam stepped between them, desperate to keep the peace. Okay. Let us not turn this into a fight. Caitlin, please. What's really going on? The air vibrated with unspoken truths, and Jim could feel the weight of secrets threatening to crash down around them. Caitlin folded her arms, her gaze piercing. You've stumbled into something far beyond you three. This isn't just a little corruption. It's a hidden war. Hidden war? Jim echoed, disbelief twisting in his gut. What are you talking about? But before she could respond, the thunder of footsteps snapped the group's focus back to the shadows. A flicker of movement made Jim tense. Through the opening, more figures emerged, government agents, clad in dark uniforms, their expressions cold and determined. Run! Ben shouted, but it felt like the world had slowed down. The realization of their danger was almost overwhelming. They spun in unison, scrambling toward the back of the chamber, but Caitlin grabbed Jim's arm, her grip firm. Follow me, she ordered, urgency slicing through her voice. Without waiting for a decision, she pulled him through a narrow passageway at the far end of the chamber. Sam and Ben exchanged glances but reacted instantly, bursting after them. The corridor was tight, forcing them to move in single file. Darkness closed in as they hurried deeper into the earth, the sound of heavy footsteps echoing behind them. Caitlin, wait! Jim hissed. How do you know where this leads? I've been here before, she snapped, quickening her pace. This tunnel connects to a network places the government can't monitor easily. But we have to move faster. The weight of her words crashed into Jim. The risks escalated. What about the files? We can't just leave them. Caitlin shot him a sidelong glance, her features lit by sporadic flickers of light. By the time anyone investigates them, it'll be too late. We need to think on our feet, The ravenous dread tightened its grip around Jim's heart, but the thrill of survival sparked something inside him. As they sprinted down the narrow passage, the sounds of pursuit lingered ominously behind. Would they escape? Or would those pursuing them catch up before they had a chance to unveil the truth? They rounded a bend, and darkness swallowed them whole. Silent breaths filled the void, but every second felt like a countdown to calamity. A sudden halt nearly sent Jim crashing into Sam, who steadied himself against the wall. "What now?" he asked, voice strained. "We have to make a decision," Caitlin said, panting. "That door ahead leads to the surface, but it's heavily monitored. Or we can keep going deeper," Ben suggested, determination etching lines in his face. "We might find a way to take the fight back to them." "That could mean walking into a trap," Caitlin countered, her eyes darting with anxiety. Jim could only stare between them, the weight of their conflict pressing down. What route would grant them hope? And what would they risk to uncover the harrowing truth they sought? With shadows closing in and decisions haunting them, the question loomed larger: would they choose light or darkness? And ultimately, who would be left standing? The hallway grew colder, as if the darkness around them exhaled a silent chill. Jim's breath fogged in the frigid air, the urgency pushing them into a decision. The shadows flickered behind, and the muffled sounds of heavy boots were relentless. Time was running short. "Caitlin, if they catch us out there," Sam started, but Caitlin cut him off. "I know," she said, her voice tangling with fear and resolve. "But I also know what's waiting if we go deeper. The truth is down here, but so are the stakes." Ben clenched his jaw. "And getting stuck up there could mean we never get a chance to dive into whatever they'd hidden." His determination radiated through the constricted space, thickening the air around them. "What's it going to be, then?" Jim whispered, feeling the weight of every living moment. Suddenly, a loud clang echoed from behind them, bouncing off the walls and rattling their nerves. It wasn't just the sound of footsteps anymore. Something or someone was gaining ground fast. Panic bubbled inside Jim's chest. "Surface!" Caitlin nudged forward, almost dragging him as she sprinted toward the door. "Now!" In a series of heartbeats, they reached it. The heavy metal door stood at the end of the passage, ominous and imposing. Jim's mind raced with doubt. Would this be freedom or doom? They halted in front of the door. Caitlin moved urgently to a keypad on the wall. Her hands flew over the buttons, but the way her fingers trembled betrayed her anxiety. Come on, can you hurry?" Ben hissed, glancing back down the tunnel. "We don't have time." With a final beep, the door released its grip, swinging open, revealing blinding light that spilled into the darkness like a beacon. Jim squinted against the brightness, the outside world awakening his senses. Freedom was tantalizingly close, but Caitlin's face twisted with dread. No, she murmured, stepping back. "This is wrong. We can't go out there. They're waiting for us." Before Jim could reply, a figure darted into view from down the corridor. A government agent, cold and calculating, gun drawn. The metallic shine of it gleamed menacingly in the dim light. "Get down!" Ben shouted, throwing himself to the floor as bullets rang out, pinging against the metal doorframe. Caitlin yanked Jim down, heart pounding against the floor. "We have to go deeper," she yelled, voice trembling with desperation. "No! It has to be the surface!" Sam cried, glancing up to see more agents spilling from the corridor, faces twisted in malicious urgency. They were out of time. Chaos erupted around them. Shouting filled the tunnel, echoing mingled fear and adrenaline. Back! Back! Ben yelled, pushing against the wall. "Get away from the door!" But it was too late. From the shadows, an explosion rocked the corridor, flinging debris and dust into the air. The force knocked them off their feet, and the light from the metal door flickered. Cold fear cut through Jim like ice as the tunnel collapsed behind them, smoke swirling as alarms blared. There was no choice left. "Go!" Caitlin commanded, pulling him to his feet as she dragged him deeper into the unknown. They stumbled forward into the darkness, breathless and terrified, unsure of where the path would take them. All around, The noise of chaos faded, the air thickening with uncertainty and dread. As they plunged deeper into the abyss, Jim's heart raced with a mixture of terror and resolve. What awaited them in the unseen depths? Whatever happens, we need to stick together, Jim said, determination fueling him. We'll find the truth, we have to. But as they pressed onward, a shudder rippled through the earth, and a whisper echoed through the darkness. You should have stayed away. With a new sense of dread hanging over them, Jim knew they were far from safe. As the shadows expanded, the path twisted on, revealing a far deeper layer of secrets waiting to surface. What lay ahead? Would truth illuminate their way, or would they only plunge further into a trap? The darkness thickened around them, pressing in like a living thing. Jim's heart pounded harder with each echoing step they took. The air felt heavier, laden with secrets, betrayal, and unspoken fears. He could barely see Caitlin through the swirling shadows, but her silhouette was a beacon of determination, pulling him forward if only to escape the horrors left behind. "Did you hear that?" Ben whispered, as if the darkness itself had ears. He strained to listen, breath held tight in his chest. A low growl, a rumble from deep within the earth, sent a jolt of panic through Jim. "What was that?" he exclaimed, voice rising in pitch. "Keep moving!" Caitlin hissed, urgency painting her tone. "We can't stop." Fighting the urge to look back, an instinctive dread gripped Jim. He had come too close to the chaos. He could still hear the gunfire, the shouts of agents, desperate to reclaim their shadows. Each step into the abyss pulled him further from safety and deeper into the unknown. The passage twisted and turned, an endless serpentine labyrinth, suffused with an eerie glow. Glancing at the walls, Jim noticed strange symbols etched deep into the stone, cryptic and unsettling. "What do you think they mean?" Sam murmured, peering closely. "No idea," Caitlin answered, voice firm but laced with uncertainty. "But they don't seem friendly." A sudden chill swept through the air, slicing through Jim like a knife. He shuddered, goosebumps rising on his arms. He could feel it, a presence beyond sight, a whisper curling around the edges of his consciousness, urging him to turn back. But he couldn't. Back there was death. They had to discover what lay ahead. Another tremor rippled beneath their feet, and the shadows danced more aggressively now. "Caitlin," Jim began, but the words faded as a series of low voices woven with malice echoed around them. "We warned you," the voices murmured, barely audible but unmistakably sinister. Each word drifted through the air like dark smoke, chilling Jim down to his core. "Silence!" Caitlin shouted, voice cutting through the weight of dread. Jim's mind raced. If this was a trap, how had they not noticed? Who was waiting for them? "Over there." Ben pointed to a faint light up ahead, a flickering glow that beckoned with its soft warmth. It felt like a promise, a hope amid despair. They sprinted towards it. The glow expanded as they neared, revealing a vast chamber, unlike anything Jim had seen before. The walls glimmered with rows of metallic panels, pulsating under their touch like the heartbeat of a living creature. An array of screens flickered to life, displaying images that made Jim's stomach twist: government experiments, hidden files, faces of people who had vanished. "They're doing this to us," Jim breathed, horror dawning on him. "They've been hiding it all." His gaze darted across the room, heart racing, when suddenly, the screens flashed black. The chamber plunged into darkness. A chilling laugh echoed through the void, rich with malice. "Did you think you could escape? Who are you?" Caitlin shouted, her voice a fierce echo, but the laughter only deepened. "Your worst nightmare," the voice hissed, and the lights flickered back on to reveal shadows surrounding them, figures clad in uniforms, faces enveloped in darkness. "What now?" Sam gasped, panic rising as their enemies closed in. The chamber hummed ominously, as if responding to the tension, and Jim felt the air shift. They were outnumbered, and an unbearable weight pressed down on him. But this was it. They had come too far to turn back now. Suddenly, one of the figures stepped into the light, face hidden but a familiar stance causing Jim's pulse to quicken. An unmistakable figure, Jim it spoke, voice smooth, yet betraying a menacing edge. "Looks like you've found me." Heart thudding, fear cascading into a torrent of memories, Jim couldn't help but wonder, had they just walked into the deepest trap of all? What happened next? Would they uncover the truth, or become the latest victims in a web of deceit? The shadows surged around Jim, Ben, Sam, and Caitlin. A weight hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Jim's heartbeat thundered in his ears, drowning out the sinister laughter echoing from the dark figure that revealed itself: Agent Mason, the very face of the government conspiracy they had been trying to unveil. "Did you really think you could uncover our secrets?" he sneered, the malicious glint in his eyes cutting through the dim room. "You're meddling with forces far beyond you." Jim felt anger swell within him, drowning out fear. "We're here to expose you. You can't hide the truth forever." His voice trembled, but he stood tall against the looming threat. The agents advanced, and a flicker of panic danced in the corner of Jim's mind. But Caitlin squeezed his arm, grounding him. "We'll fight back," she whispered fiercely, determination flaring in her eyes. "For Sam, for everyone who has suffered." Ben nodded, his jaw clenched. "We've seen what you're capable of. We wouldn't go down without a fight." With that spark of unity, Jim glanced around the chamber. In the glow of the screens, he spotted a metal panel fixed against the far wall. "The files there, a chance we could turn them against him." Caitlin strode forward, pulling Jim and Sam along. "Come on. If we can just get whatever information is on those screens, we could reveal the cover-up." Agent Mason stepped forward, his smile growing darker. "You think you can just run away? This is the end of the road for you." As the agents drew closer, Jim threw himself at the panel, hands trembling as he pressed buttons at random, hoping to unleash any information that could act as their weapon. The screens flickered, and images flashed: photographs, reports of missing people, notes on government tests. "It's all here!" Sam shouted, his eyes wide. "This is everything!" The room trembled as Mason barked orders, and the agents rushed forward with menacing purpose. "Stop them!" Suddenly, the chaos erupted. Lights flickered wildly, interns of destruction spiraled through the air, and a fierce crash echoed like thunder. Jim looked back to see Caitlin gripping a heavy metal rod, swinging it hard against the advancing agents. They stumbled, shock plastered on their faces. It was their opening. "Let us go!" Ben shouted, urgency twisting his voice. Jim grabbed Sam and Caitlin, sprinting toward the exit where lights spilled in waves. They ducked through the door just as agents yelled for backup. Outside, the night air rushed at them, a cold, liberating wind that tasted of freedom and fear. They sprinted down a narrow street, breathless and wild, hearts thrumming. Behind them, the sound of chaos died into the distance, replaced by the quiet hum of their own fear. "Where are we going?" Sam panted, glancing behind. Jim caught his breath and looked at Caitlin. "We need to find a way to release everything we discovered tonight. We have to warn everyone before they come for us." Caitlin nodded, resolve shining in her eyes. "We can't let them silence us." Their path led them toward the old town square, where faint street lights flickered, illuminating their exit from the shadows. But as they reached the heart of Silver Creek, the reality surged through them. People shuffled about, blissfully unaware of the sinister grip tightening around their lives. "People have to know," Jim said, a fire igniting in his belly. "This town is at risk, and we can't let them keep doing this." They made their way to a small community center. It stood there, solid and familiar, a place where the town came together. Jim felt alive inside, the thought of vulnerable citizens relying on the information they were about to unleash pushing him forward. With adrenaline fueling their movement, they burst through the doors. Lights flickered on, revealing a gathering of locals, their voices mixing into a comforting buzz. "Everyone!" Jim shouted, calling their attention. Silence fell. "We have something urgent to share. It's about what they've been hiding." As faces turned toward them, disbelief hung thick in the air. The weight of their journey pressed down on Jim's shoulders as he took a deep breath, launching into the truth, the nightmare that was closing in on Silver Creek. "We're in danger. The government, they've been testing people, lying to all of us for years. We have proof." Whispers filled the room, frightened faces wide with horror and disbelief. "What are you talking about?" A voice questioned from the back, trembling with uncertainty. Look! Caitlin stepped forward, pulling a device from her jacket that Sam had taken with him, a connection cable that linked to the data from the mill. We need to show you. Jim moved forward, holding the eyes of his neighbors, his friends. This isn't just about us anymore. It's everyone. If we don't unite, we'll be swallowed whole. Images illuminated the center, every face, every moment. The truth cascaded through the crowd like cold water, waking them from a slumber of ignorance. Suddenly, the door burst open, a rush of air followed by the harsh light of flashlights piercing through the depths of darkness, and Jim's heart sank as he saw agents infiltrating the safe space. Everyone recoiled, shock shadowing their faces. Don't let them take you! Jim shouted, recalling the fear sown through every fiber of his being. They can't silence all of us. And as chaos erupted, people surged forward. Empowered, he felt a surge too. They would fight back, together. In that moment, against the terrifying odds, Jim realized the truth lay not just with him, but with everyone now gathered around him. United, they could shine a light into the dark, a flame fueled by enough courage to take down the lurking shadows. They were ready to stand as a community. In the whirlwind of the night, as the past clashed with the present, one truth stood tall: the fight against the dark was just beginning, but they wouldn't fight it alone. This was their home, and they would protect it with everything they had. The townsfolk rallied, clinging to hope as they stood tall against the approaching storm. Together, their roar resonated far into the distance, a potent reminder that even in the darkest of nights, the light of truth cannot be snuffed out. And with a final unified stance, the tides of Silver Creek began to shift, a movement reborn. Now, here's where I really need you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and let your voice be heard. And flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this jaw-dropping conclusion. You need to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see that standing up against darkness brings strength. Don't wait even one more second. Let us keep this community strong and connected.